slower speeds, like what they do in Ontario or in Canada overall, really, is actually unsafe. The reason why it's unsafe is due to what's called the Solomon curve. The Solomon curve essentially says that speeds that are significantly above or below the average speed that most motorists are going on the road are essentially equally unsafe. So on a road like this is a country road. Ontario says that the speed limit is, as you can see, 80 kilometers an hour. Those cars up ahead of me are going at least 100, well over 100. So there's been a couple stretches back there when I was going the speed limit. Actually, I was going a little bit over the speed limit. I was going about 85-ish kilometers an hour in an 80. I had several cars blow past me going at least 100. That tends to be the average speed that people go here. So I'm actually less safe going the speed limit when everyone is going 20 over the speed limit. If I were traveling at the same speed that everyone else is traveling, people won't be passing me, which increases the risk of an accident because the person is quickly getting over in the left lane and trying to pass me quickly before oncoming traffic comes. And there's usually, like right here, there's a limited space that you can pass because it is just a 2-lane road, and they just make the temporary passing areas to pass if there's really slow traffic. See, especially here, because this is a farm country, so particularly during the week, you'll often see, during harvest time, you'll see heavy farm machinery on this road, and they just travel right down the side of the road, and so Ontario made certain to put some of those passing areas in to make it a bit easier to pass those farm vehicles. It's also Amish country, and right now there's not any, but you'll often see the horse and buggies on the side of the road. So it makes it a little bit easier to pass those guys. By making the speeds this low, and Canada has some of the lowest speed limits in the entire world, particularly the entire developed world. And I'm not sure in terms of like the history of Canada when that happened or why that happened, like what decision-making process was involved in creating that trend, because it certainly does not reflect the facts. It seems to be the case that Canada just doesn't feel like revisiting that topic for whatever reason, and my guess is that it's political. My guess is that they're trying to virtue signal to the world that maybe Canada is more safe and progressive because they're making speed limits that they think make people safer. And intuitively you would think that, right? Oh, well, if I make the speed limit lower, then I'll be saving human lives, right? I mean, I think that's probably the rationale. That, okay, well, if everybody's going slower, everybody will be better off. But unfortunately, that's simply not the case. The reason that it doesn't matter if you post the speed limit very, very low is that it's based on the 85th percentile concept. It's just a function of both human psychology and engineering. Most vehicles are engineered to perform a certain way on most roads that are engineered for vehicles to perform a certain way. It's just simply a matter of physics. So when you combine that with selective enforcement, where, when most people go 100 kilometers an hour on an 80 kilometer hour road, and it's not enforced, whether there's not officers who are patrolling, or if they are patrolling, they're not enforcing it because, going 10 or 15 kilometers an hour over the speed limit has essentially become the status quo, where the officers don't think it's unsafe either until an officer feels like enforcing it. So it really puts me and other motorists, and particularly motorcyclists, in this kind of difficult decision, because especially as a motorcyclist, ultimately I want to get home safe. I want to enjoy the sport, which does have inherent risks, but I want to try to mitigate some of those risks so that I can ultimately get home safely, but have a nice ride. But at the same time, motorcyclists and particularly sport bikes, unfortunately, sport bikes tend to attract more police attention. Not even necessarily if they're fast. I mean, an R3 is not, or a Ninja 250R, the newer ones. They look like they're fast, but they're really not. But a cop just sees, oh, hey, that looks like a sport bike. That person must be up to no good. So let's say that an officer feels like enforcing on that particular day, and on you. So, an officer is sitting there patrolling, and he sees a bunch of cars go by. They're all speeding, and you're the last one, say, in the group, and you're also speeding. Let's say you're going 100 and an 80. Well, the officer sees a sport bike go by with a Power Ranger on it, and he just assumes that, this person's up to no good, despite the fact that all of the cars in front of you were also speeding. But he feels like coming after you because, you're up to no good. So you're sort of in this position, right, where you're trying to ride at the Solomon curve to make sure that you get home safely, but doing so means that you're compromising your overall safety for an increased risk of getting a speeding ticket. So, what are you supposed to do? I think that most people would optimize for living a bit longer at the increased risk of potentially getting a speeding ticket, which it's not just the speeding ticket. The speeding ticket will then you're not just paying for the speeding ticket. Those points are going to be applied to your insurance, which will make your premium go up, and you'll be paying for that ticket for many years to come, depending on where you live. It could be 5 years, or it could affect your driving record for quite a lot longer, because they can go back essentially your whole lifetime and look at all the different incidents you've had. So you're sacrificing your life in one way or another. Either you're sacrificing your actual life, or you're sacrificing your essentially your life energy. The amount of energy that you have as a person throughout a lifetime is finite. The amount of labor that you spend so that you can enjoy driving or riding or whatever the case may be is literally minutes of your life. So either going to compromise, dying instantly during your ride, or you're going to spend longer working to pay off that ticket, which are resources that could have been spent in other ways, like saving for retirement or investing or any other number of things that you could spend the money on. So it's a tough decision, and it's not really a clear-cut answer on how you should approach the problem. For me, at least, I would prefer to come home safe. Everything carries risks, and really it's just a function of determining the right balance between risk and reward.